I call to order the August 11th, 2014 regular meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Education. We welcome everyone and request that everyone in the audience and here on the floor, please, if you would, silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. And as the rains come, which is what that sound is, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Treasurer Witt, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bates.
Present.
Mrs. Copeland-Dansby.
Present.
Mrs. Hoffman. Here. Mr. Coons.
Here.
Mr. Manera.
Here.
Mr. Nelms.
Here.
President Bolton.
Here. And before we start tonight, and preceding a moment of silence for the person we fondly referred to as the 8th member of our school board, I'd like to read, if I could, a resolution that was presented by the board when Jim Berry, was awarded our Pinnacle Award. Last week, Jim Berry passed away after a difficult battle, and it's a real loss that we all feel very deeply and will more and more every time we meet as a committee or as a group, or somebody's not out in the audience raising their hand and telling us you're not doing such a good job, you need to do this or you need to do something else. Prior to reading this resolution, I will say that I know how happy Jim would be that our administration, in part from the efforts made by the community committee on transportation that he was a member of, so happily would he be to know that the fare drop is going to occur for our high school students. It's something he worked hard for, and more particularly insisted upon the kinds of excellence that our administration is able to produce and make those savings so that we could send them to our families and have our children have even more opportunity to get to school on time and be there. But we will read this resolution. We do miss Jim. Our best goes to his family and most particularly to his wife, Marianne, who is also ill and going through this difficult time herself. But if we may, let me read this if I could. Whereas the Cincinnati Public Schools has worked hard to become a top-performing urban district in the state of Ohio, achieving numerous milestones thanks to the strong collaboration with community allies who share the district's commitment to the success of each student, and whereas among the allies are individuals whose contributions to public education in Cincinnati have been particularly instrumental to the district's success, and whereas the Board of Education wants to recognize these contributions through the creation of the Education Pinnacle Award, which will be given out annually following a community nomination process. Whereas James W. Berry, nicknamed the 8th board member, was nominated and received unanimous support from each board member for his tireless and passionate commitment over more than a decade to the students and staff of Cincinnati Public Schools, including serving as a strong, committed volunteer and advocate for the passage of a bond issue and to fund new or fully renovated schools for every child in Cincinnati, serving on the CPS Budget Commission, the CPS Transportation Committee, the CPS Advisory Team that selected the current superintendent and transportation director, and the 1992 Binger Commission that studied the district, serving on the school planning team for Mount Washington School renovation, helping to ensure that plans were implemented on schedule and according to standards. I can only imagine those meetings with Jim there. Serving on Mount Washington School's local school decision-making committee, LSDMC, long after moving his family to over the Rhine community, consistently and actively participating in community forums, Board of Education meetings and other venues to advocate for the needs of CPS students and their families, contributing to the success of students and families by serving both on the local and national boards of Parents for Public Schools, donating thousands of dollars to fund field trips and other enrichment opportunities for students. And whereas Cincinnati School Board present its first Education Pinnacle Award and what a standard he has established for that award and subsequent winners. On October 17th, 2013, at Woodward Career Technical High School, Mr. James W. Berry will be presented with the first Pinnacle Award by the Board of Education. Before we have a moment of silence, if any board member would like to say anything, feel free. Sir, Mr. Coons.
Yeah, I just wanted to sum up what I thought of Mr. Berry and his contributions. He was good at telling us what we were doing wrong, but I think what stood out to me was the way he interacted with us and the way he galvanized support, always incredibly kind. He always spoke with integrity. He didn't take opportunities to bash us necessarily. He was very constructive and solution-focused, incredibly generous, and those are the ways I'll remember him for sure. And definitely want to send our prayers out to his family as his wife is also struggling. So,
any other board members? Mrs. Bates?
Oh, I'd like to echo the same sentiments as Mr. Coons. And again, he told us what we needed to hear, and he was always very, very objective when he did so, and always did it with a smile on his face and with the best nature possible. He was a great person and such an asset to this board. It's going to be difficult to think of, the work ahead of us without him. So I too want to send my condolences to Mary Ann and their granddaughter Sarah for their great loss, and wish Mary Ann the best in her recovery.
Yeah, I just would like to say, sometimes we never know the value of people until they're no longer among us or with us. Life is so brief that a lot of times people that come and they labor with love in this very district, I think most of us personally and professionally attempt to not take that for granted. In Jim's case, there's two things that really signify his presence. One was that he cared, and he always had sincere intent. You can't say that about everybody that you encounter, because everybody has different personalities. But I think that he was called and assigned to CPS for such a time as this to improve the state of our kids, and then moving into Over the Rhine, when at one time Over the Rhine was really designated as one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. It says a lot about Jim. And then when I last saw him, he never gave any indication how sick he was or that he was recovering from an illness. So like all those that passed before us, I think about Terry Affris, and I think about those others that have come, served, and left. And so I just want to say thank you for lending Jim to us in a time where we needed him. He will be missed.
And as much public service as he gave, the ceremonies and what have you of his passing are private, but not surprisingly, in lieu of flowers and other sorts of commemorative items, it was asked by the family that the monies or gifts be made in name of Jim Berry to Mount Washington School, where there is a room, as I understand it, a community room that carries his name. So we will miss him. Would you please rise, and we are going to all do a moment of silence for Jim Berry. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the special public meeting of July 23rd, 2014, the special public meeting of July 28th of 2014, and the regular meeting of July 28th, 2014. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved as presented. Mr. Coons, as chairman of the Partnership and Public Engagement Committee, would you please present the July 30th committee meeting report?
Yes, I present the minutes as written. Do want to highlight a couple of things. First, we had our special education budget community conversation update. This went very well. It was well attended. Parents and community members gave us some great feedback on how we can continue to improve our special education services. And also, in honor of Jim Barry, I'll bring up the fact that we will have another Education Pinnacle Award coming this school year. I think it's very timely that we were able to honor Jim before he passed, and we hope to, have as much pomp and circumstance for our next award recipient. So we plan on having that ceremony in the spring.
Thank you, Chairman Coons. All in favor of the committee report as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tonight's first presentation will be about a generous gift. We are a fortunate school system. Generous gift of computers to Euler School by one of our partners, PowerNet Global. And if possible, those folks can come on down and we can get the introduction. I see that we have the principal here. We have the resource coordinator, and Amy, if you'll do the honors. Would you do the honors for us?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm honored to be here tonight as the principal of Euler and to accept such a gracious donation from PowerNet Global. This is just such a tremendous gift that they are giving to the community of Lower Price Hill. We started with a tour in the fall, and it has grown to internet access for everyone in Lower Price Hill. So this is such a fantastic opportunity, and I would like to thank PowerNet Global for all of the opportunities they're going to provide for our students. We will have access, like I said, to the Wi-Fi, which should allow the students to level the playing field and be more proactive in their education. So thank you, PowerNet Global.
I think we have with us, besides Principal Randolph, we have Jamie Lugan, we have who's the resource coordinator, Darlene Kamine, Executive Director of Community Learning Center Institute, Allie Stevens, CEO of PowerNet Global, Edita Dolan-Mayo, I hope that was close, brand marketing manager, and also for PowerNet Global, and Mark Giles, network field operations supervisor for PowerNet Global. I hope I didn't miss anybody, but please, we'd really like to hear more from all of you as to what this means and what it will impact our students.
Hi, and thank you for having us tonight. I'm Allie Stevens, and with me tonight, as you mentioned, are Edita Dolan-Mayo and Mark Giles. Tonight, we'd like to share a little bit about who PowerNet is and how through technology we plan to enhance the learning experience and communication at Euler School and in Lower Price Hill. With over 20 years telecom experience, PowerNet enables businesses and communities to connect via wireless networking, communication devices, and voice and data solutions. PowerNet and our employees value philanthropy, and we have a culture of giving back to the community. And throughout the year, we participate in many charitable events, and our employees also participate in volunteer opportunities. The pillars of our mission statement are to provide customers with innovative communication solutions and to be an instrument of greater purpose for all, And when we started discussing this opportunity to work with this neighborhood, we quickly realized how perfectly it fit with our technical capabilities, our mission, and our values. And it's because we value education, communication, and the people of Cincinnati that we feel very honored to be part of this project. This project wouldn't be happening without many people, but particularly Darlene Kamine, who you mentioned, Jamie Lugan, Mark Giles, and Adita Dolan Mayo, who I'm going to now turn it over to so she can discuss the actual donation.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie, and good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
You asked why Euler. As mentioned, we took a tour in fall, and we quickly realized that this location has become an oasis not only for the students they serve, but also the community. They have their community learning center, their partnerships with local businesses, being able to open up a one-site vision center, a health clinic, a dental clinic, and on-site therapy, all self-sustaining. They service 650 to 700 students daily. 98 of those are on free reduced lunch, 35% live in extreme poverty, and 30% are actually homeless. And with all of that, they have 2 computer labs, being able to provide access to those students. We as PowerNet saw that as an opportunity to give back and help. We understand that access to technology and tablets can greatly improve people's lives. So we've decided to make a donation to the school. We are going to donate 50 10.1-inch tablets, 50 keyboard cases, and two rolling locked carts that the school will be able to use internally and also externally with their community projects. However, after speaking further with the team at Euler, we found that the vision was much greater than what was just inside of the school. We needed to follow their model. Opportunities could not only be available inside of the walls, but needed to be available outside in order to make a larger change. This is where the second portion of our project was born. Through 2 strategic ways, PowerNet will be able to help the school internally and externally. The first way is through Gift One. Gift One is a PowerNet-sponsored program that couples our expertise with technology and our give-back attitude to the community. So how does it work? You simply log on to PowerNetGift1.com and you purchase a tablet or tablets in the amount of $150 or more. Upon checkout, you then select one of our pre-approved favored recipients. It's as easy as that. And then PowerNet will donate a free 7-inch tablet to that organization of your choice. Here's a snapshot of our favored recipients. As you can see, Euler is one of those on our list. Our vision for Gift One is to bridge the digital divide and to improve the lives in the community and around the world. The second portion of our project helps us improve Lower Price Hill community. I'd like to now pass the baton over to Mark to explain that further.
Thank you, Adudia. Good evening. With any tablet donation, we always make an effort to ensure the devices have adequate internet access. Many residents in the Lower Price Hill community do not have consistent access to digital information. And as many of you know, a tablet without internet can easily be reduced to an expensive toy. With that in mind, we always strive to guarantee that the devices will function as an educational asset. While the tablets donated to the school are receiving perfect connectivity from the school district itself, we wanted to reach out into the community and try to connect those devices as well. This first location functions as a preschool. It has a classroom, and we'll be able to locate it outside, which will cover the park directly behind the school. The following 3 locations are maintained by Block Ministries, which has several locations throughout Price Hill. They have a small business incubator that targets young entrepreneurs and helps them launch brands. They have a pizza parlor that will function as a Wi-Fi internet cafe. They also have a classroom that does various after-school programs and adult education programs. And the 5th location will cover the park between Hatmaker Street and Party Alley. And the combination of all these will help to give internet connectivity to a large portion of the neighborhood and help to enable the entire community. And with that, we'd like to thank you all for having us and open up to any questions if you have any.
Great. Mr. Coons.
First, thank you so much for this generous gift. I'm kind of floored by it. I do want to ask, though, is PowerNet a local company? I apologize for my ignorance, but
Definitely. We've been in the Cincinnati area for 22 years. We're located on Route 4 until about 6 months ago. We were in Mason at this moment, yeah.
Awesome.
We do a lot of projects in and out of the city, work with schools, churches, and a lot of community events.
Well, thank you. I'll be sure to let everyone know all the good work you're doing.
Other questions, comments?
Yeah,
Mr. Manera?
where is this? First of all, thank you. I do think that you failed to mention some things in your presentation, and those are the adjectives that go alongside our fantastic students, our talented and gifted teachers that are making it work. Thank you so much for not only touring one of our schools, as you could, if you could find the time, there are a lot more other schools to tour. But I just appreciate just everything Darlene and Jill have done over there, and I'm glad that they were able to connect with you. It's an investment that is going to give a lot of return, not only to your company, but also to us as a city. So thank you so much for stepping up and taking advantage of our just our community learning center partnerships, and not only blessing the school, but also the whole community. So thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? I'm so excited about the connectivity piece. That's a dream that can maybe come true from a standpoint of, you know, reducing that digital divide. But the idea that the people in the community can have greater access now, and you've even, and thank you for the visual images, or I wouldn't have been able to see that. But I think that would be wonderful. I know people work hard to create safe zones around our schools, and now we can add to the list that we not only have to create safe zones around our schools, or need to, but indeed connected zones. And I think that's just the beginning of a great model for us. So thank you so much. Thank you for your generosity, and thank you for your insight, and thanks for caring about our kids. Mrs. Hoffman, and then Mrs. Dansby, yes.
Yeah, I just want to thank you as well. I think it's sometimes hard for lots of folks who, you know, the internet is second nature to us, to realize that there are entire portions of our city where people don't have that access. And for so many of our kids who don't have the opportunity to travel outside of our city or even outside of their neighborhoods, just what this means to them and their families to be able to access the world, it's really remarkable. I think there's, you know, in big and small ways we'll see this. I know I had tried to help some of my former students just apply to college, and they had no access to the internet, and so we had to find a hotel that was willing to let us use their breakfast rooms, free Wi-Fi, just to sit down and work in a couple-hour segments on college applications. And when you think of all the barriers our kids are facing to things like going to college, something like getting access to an application just doesn't cross a lot of people's minds. And so in so many very personal ways to the families there, you know, I think we could go on and on with those kind of examples. This is going to really matter. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for your support to Euler School. And just like Board Member Hoffman talked about, just the lack of internet in particular parts of our communities is very detrimental to a lot of our students. And so what you're doing for them is fantastic. I also want to give a shout out to Miss Amy, because she does a fantastic job at Euler. I've witnessed it for myself. And I think, you know, the partnership that PowerNet and Euler have together will be fantastic. So thank you again for your support, and keep up the good work. See you real soon.
Thank you very much. Our next presentation will be about the grade 3 results, third grade reading guarantee and early childhood. And with us we have interim assistant superintendent Cheryl Broadnax, and also Andrea Faulkner, manager of early childhood.
Hi,
welcome.
Good evening. Welcome. So we'll start with the data points. What we do know at this time is that last year, in 2012 and 13, data was at 75.9%. We have preliminary data, as things have not been finalized at this point, that the 13-14 will be somewhere around the 78%. For the last one, which is in terms of promotion, which if we'll remember from last year was those meeting the criteria to move to the 4th grade. At this time, we're still awaiting the July OAA results, but we are at 97% of our students moving forward at this time. So we still have those results to come in, and there is still the possibility that additional students could still be promoted. So what we did want to do tonight, though, was take the opportunity, since we're still waiting for data to be finalized, is to talk a little bit in terms about what are we doing in the pre-K3 department and what are we doing to get there and get our students to able to be promoted and proficient and higher. So when we look at preschool in particular, I think there is one thing that many people are not aware about is that transitioning 4-year-olds going into kindergarten, we are servicing approximately 260 families in the summer, providing in-home intervention to those 4-year-olds with the purpose of increasing kindergarten readiness. Last year, we purchased and aligned new preschool materials to be aligned to the new ELA standards, which in turn align to the new kindergarten readiness standards. We do have a resource coordinator that will be joining us, working deal with the Avondale Choice Grant. And the primary role of this person is to develop literacy activities that can be used within the families. We're also going to create a demonstration classroom so that parents can come in, and the resource coordinator can actually work with the parents in terms of how to work with their child to develop literacy skills. In the spring, it will be unveiled a new ELA assessment for 3 and 4-year-olds, which will be now as well. And we've been continuing our ongoing restructuring of the early childhood department. A highlight for this year's work, though, in the ECE is working with even our preschool providers and family support assistants to build their bank of knowledge in terms of literacy and in terms of what does it mean to be kindergarten ready and what does it mean to be able to meet a 3rd grade requirement, so that we're starting very early with parent awareness. This fall is the new kindergarten readiness assessment replacing crawl. For that, something that is mandated by the state is that all teachers actually had to be trained and have to become certified by taking a test in order to administer that. So this summer we did have district-wide training for that. There is an app for the iPad to help in the administration, but ultimately it will report multiple data points, even including some social and emotional readiness. That's one of the domains for the new KRA. For 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, there was a lot of great groundwork that has been laid through the curriculum department, but one of the things that we're doing within this framework is we've really brought all of the best practices and professional development that has been provided in the previous years and put it together into a really comprehensive, all-encompassing framework. It is very specific and aligned to Common Core and also in foundational skills, which is a lot to do with phonemic awareness and the decoding skills at K and 1, with even a larger amount of time being devoted to literacy skills, including cross-content of literacy skills. Embedded in this new framework is a very clearly defined approach to giving and implementing tiers of intervention, and we've bought very specific resources to aid in that. The purpose of that is really to hone in on early gap closure, focusing on trying to close the gap as early as the kindergarten years. We've developed a comprehensive resource list. These are resources that have been proven to address very specific decoding and comprehension skills that will be supplied to all teachers. And we have purchased some supplemental materials. This is to kind of better align and be very strategic in the implementation of phonemic awareness and morphology as well. All professional development for K through 3 then will align to helping teachers implement this new framework. Pacing has been done. It is aligned to Common Core. And we will continue the work with the reading specialists, which are the 3rd grade guarantee kind of experts in each of our buildings. Continuing on, we have Andrea Faulkner, who's been an addition to our department, who specializes really in her knowledge of early literacy and the third grade guarantee. And what you'll see later in this presentation is that many CPS departments have also joined in with focusing on literacy. We've been doing a lot more outreach in terms of working with community partners, especially in the preschool arena, because we do understand that CPS still can only service a proportionate number of students coming into kindergarten. So we're trying to form more collaborative adventures with service providers, both in-home providers and daycare providers, really for the purpose of getting kindergarten students ready for kindergarten. And in terms of looking at other initiatives in the district, it is our goal to kind of back some of those initiatives down so that we really are developing a very comprehensive pre-K to 12th grade. Each foundational block per grade builds on each other, and that way you have a very strong continuum of learning. In the next slides, you'll be able to see some highlights of how some other departments within CPS really have helped support the work of the pre-K through literacy. It is very collaborative. Some of these will be mentioned later this evening.
So I'm going to get to talk with you about some of the collaborations not only we have with the state, but with our community partners as well. One of the partnerships is a Department of Student Services with Susan Bunty and the University of Cincinnati. They are working with these 4 schools to provide a tiered intervention system for our kindergarten and our first grade students. Along with this, they will be providing early assessments so that they can provide tier 2 interventions for those students who are starting to be not on track in kindergarten and first grade, so that they can monitor those interventions and see which students actually need tier 3 interventions. The purpose of this truly is to get our students to be reading on track readers by the end of first grade. We have also been awarded a straight A fund for our Great Readers, Great Leaders initiative here. This grant will allow us to have instructional coaches to focus solely on the primary readers and their teachers, so that those teachers can not only increase their curriculum knowledge and their instruction of primary students, but also that they can meet the guarantee so they can be teaching those third grade students who are reading below grade level. This funds will allow for not only reading endorsements, but the opportunity for teachers to take the praxis and have a good foundation before they step into either one of those programs. Another grant that we have an amazing set of, our amazing grant writer, Kara Shibia, worked with Julie Doppler on this one for our 21st Century Community Learning Centers grants, which have been awarded to the above schools. And the purpose of these really was to focus on increasing comprehension and the literacy skills of students. This will provide an additional reading specialist for schools, family literacy specialist, paid tutors, along with the idea that we're taking this beyond the classroom and also into the community. As a big push with our pre-K through 3 early childhood department is to meet the families in their homes and in their classrooms, and provide those resources for parents to be an additional help to help their children learn to read.
Any questions?
Questions, comments, cheers?
Good job.
Lots and lots of cheers. I think the progress that we've been able to see has just been tremendous. And so thank you for the work that you're doing. I really like what you're pointing out about community partnerships. I think we all know that you can't do these things in a vacuum, that you have to extend yourself to your partners in that. So kudos for doing that. And I think that area probably could grow more, you know, just learning about other partners, in-home processes and that. So I would just say kudos and cheers. Keep up the good work.
Mr. Kentz.
Again, kudos and cheers. I just wanted to ask, do you foresee any challenges with this work? It's tough work and it's mandated stuff, so.
I think the biggest challenge really is going to be comprehensively even linking and networking the partners to use their strengths. Each of our partners have different focus areas and resources. I think that'll be a challenge to come because honestly, the literacy initiative really is a community initiative. That's the best way to address this. I think the other piece is to continue to develop the awareness of the third grade guarantee. This really is our first year in which there truly has been retention for students not meeting that. So I think as we move forward, I still think that that will continue to be an area, just really building parents' awareness of this, starting even at our very young ages with preschool and kindergarten students.
Okay.
Mr. Manera?
Sorry that I missed part of the presentation, but I did have a question in regard to some of the challenges, and that is our ESL population, which is quite big in our pre-K and kindergarten students. How close are we working with our ESL department to make sure that our assessments and this awareness is going not only to the parents, but that, you know, some of our tutors even are sensitive to some of the background that our students have, and that it's not a developmental reason why they're not, advancing or not catching on the material right away, but because of, the language barriers, the cultural barriers, the home dynamics. Just, can you give me some on that?
Well, I would agree. I think that's kind of been an ongoing issue. I think one of the things that we have been doing is reaching out to partners, even in our preschool arena, that can tap in and help provide us that communication piece to the parents. We've worked closely with the ESL department so that all communications are being translated. But sometimes, even with the translation, it really comes down to being verbal communication that is needed with them. We've continued to kind of try to outsource and look for those who can assist us in that work. But in terms of what we have done here, we've worked very closely with ESL. We're always looking for tutors that can assist with that. That's a pretty hot commodity, and honestly, there's probably not enough. We could always use more in that arena.
My concern on it is that you're doing amazing work, and a lot of money is being granted to us, and what I've seen happen at Roberts, which is where I'm seeing the results, is that, that because of little things like parents don't understand the test scores and they don't understand the evaluation results at the end of the school year, then they're not able to then reinforce what we need them to reinforce at home. And I know we can't enter the home, but just making sure, that forms are translated, making sure that there's a phone call to those who really need that extra, just for that understanding. And when we consider that 4% of our population, our students, is Hispanic, we need to make a little bit more of an effort just to make sure that we're catching them early on and we're getting these families on board at those very crucial ages. So thank you for your work. I just want to remind you of that.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Hoffman.
Yes, I know you said it very quickly in the beginning, so I wanted to say again the percent of the kids who have passed the third grade guarantee.
At this point, we have 97% of our students that will be promoted based on the promotable score to the fourth grade, and we are still awaiting the July OAA scores to come in.
That is worth celebrating. That is, I think, you all came and talked to us a number of points during the year about where we were at. And so I think most of the community knows it wasn't like teachers went and sprinkled fairy dust and that's how we got the results. But there was a lot of deliberate work that you all put in, our teachers, the reading instructors, our kids put in to get to that point, to make us comparable with any district in the state. So congratulations to you all, and just amazing work from our teachers and our kids.
I would agree.
I certainly ditto that particularly, and I can remember very clearly the great fear that the community had when first, how shall I say it, confronted by this challenge. And I think the administration and the staff and the teachers union particularly found ways to address this incredible challenge. And I love it because, like you say, that 97% are promotable. That's comparable to anybody, the other 22 districts in Hamilton County. It's a number that runs very clearly with any of the suburban districts, so it's very exciting. I also do like the idea, just in the name of equity, I like that, and I know it's something that's reasonably new, is this whole idea of the PK through third grade, where you're going, we aren't just kind of in that building mentality, but the idea of a more equitable distribution of resources and oversight across the buildings in those grade levels, let alone preparing them before they even get there. So hats off to everybody, and just a great leadership on the superintendent's part in trying to rededicate resources that were spent one way being spent in a more effective way to get this great achievement. I know that last week I had to go to a meeting, and there were, I don't know, 30 urban districts, I guess, little and big, representative board members, and they were all talking about this incredible achievement down in Cincinnati. And so I was walking even taller, you know, and prouder. Taller's not too easy for me, but I can do the proud stuff pretty well. So congratulations, just congratulations, and thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just as I sit here and think some ways to help support the work that you're doing, you know, I guess maybe the month of March we held a community conversation where we first began to talk to the community about the issue of the third grade guarantee. And how we were all up in arms with the number of students who were facing challenges. So I would like to see us continue to do more of that. We have to understand some of the literacy barriers just in our communities with our parents. And just because we send a letter or something home doesn't mean that the message is getting through. So I would like to see us do more community outreach to ensure that all of our students have the best shot that they can get. And then number two, we need to do a better job telling our story. You know, I'm going to suggest, and you probably will agree, but you know, let's highlight this. Let's shoot it out to the press and to the media, because it's something that is really worth telling the story, talking about the barriers, what we were faced with, and then how all the instruction and intervention went on, and then the end result. And more than likely, when those July OA scores come back, there'll be even more to celebrate. So we have got to do a better job telling our story. So again, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm going to applaud. I mean, I don't know about anybody else.
Just don't let the state auditor know yet.
Right. Here we go. All right, we'll begin. Let's see, Mr. Nelms, let's start with kudos.
I'm going to allow my kudo partner, Mr. Manera, to present his first.
Sounds good. And it's pretty cool kudos to Procter & Gamble, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Gardens for what is being known as the Extreme Makeover for the community of South Cumminsville. South Cumminsville was the winner of the 2014 Community Makeover, which awarded a complete renovation of the Wayne ball fields and significant upgrades also to the Millvale Recreation Center. And I've seen both places, and they're amazing, so definitely well-deserved kudos.
All right, thank you. And my kudos is to our very own board president, Eve Bowden, for receiving the Civic Leadership Award sponsored by Venue magazine. Award winners were recognized for civic involvement in the arts, health services, children's causes, environmental groups, animal rights, and or general advocacy within our community. Kudos, Ms. Bowden, for the work that you do for the children and for the district. Thank you for representing.
Thank you. Others? I appreciate that, Vice President Nelms, I really do. And happy to be there. There's a great list of folks. I have a follow-up to the one that Mr. Manera read, and this is from Principal Badgett at Ethel Taylor School, where the Reds and the Procter & Gamble and the zoo folks came out. There were over 500 or so folks that came out, but I know that they sent a list of thanks to the school staff and for all the work that they did that day. And at Ethel Taylor, particularly mentioned with plant operator Don Huneman, custodians William Crawford, Dave Stevenson, and Terry Wilson for making it possible for all those folks to come in and have a good day. And thanks for sharing the building. And boy, they planted a forest out there. It's just gorgeous. Thank you for that. I also going to show my age by making sure that everybody knows that over the weekend CPS was additionally honored at one of my second or third favorite places in the world, the Great American Ballpark, because not only did we celebrate Junior Griffey, who went to Big Moeller, but at least I counted a half a dozen times that the other two honorees to the Reds Hall of Fame, as I sit here next to a former Red himself, Ron Oster and Dave Parker, were cited as being CPS graduates. Dave Parker from the old Quarter Tech experience, and I'll show my age because I can remember when I went to Aiken, having to have Aiken play against Quarter Tech and watching Dave Parker in high school. If you think he was impressive when he was a professional ball player, let me tell you, when he was in high school, it was even more amazing compared to everything else. And Ronnie Oster, who graduated from Withrow, and I was very pleased. I know that Mr. Parker is in the CPS Hall of Fame, as we see Mr. Leshner up there and Mr. Nelms here. And I know that Ronnie Oster is in the Withrow Hall of Fame. So I loved it. I love it anytime Marty Brenneman has to say something good about CPS. So this was great, and congratulations to them and to the programs that allowed them to advance. And there was also a Kickstarter event to celebrate the Euler documentary that's reaching the end of its editing process. So I believe it was Amy Scott that was here in Cincinnati to get that done, so we can all await that documentary being finally developed for us. Any other kudos, sir?
I don't have any.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Retirements, Mrs. Bates?
Yes, and I would like to congratulate and thank the following retirees: Lindsay Adams and Linda Hopkins, both teachers, the civil service personnel, James A. Carr, Jean Carrier, Joyce Flowers, Mary Lee Holland, Barbara Kramer, and Walter McLean. We thank you for your service to our children and the district.
Thank you. There are no members of the public that wish to speak this evening, and so we will go on to the resolution portion of our meeting. And I think, Mrs. Bates, you have a resolution for board consideration.
Yes, I am bringing forward a resolution amending board policies 8500, food services, 8510, sale and consumption of nutritional foods, 8515, wellness, and 8550, vending machines. The board received copies of these amended policies, and I recommend the resolution and these amended board policies as printed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Coons, thank you. Any discussion or questions? Yes.
I did just want to make one point here. So we discussed this quite at length in our policy committee. And I don't see Ms. Shelley here tonight. But just wanted to point out that there was an article, I think in yesterday's paper, about, yes, free and reduced lunch, and there's a neighboring county who is giving up their government subsidies so they do not have to follow the federal guidelines for healthier lunches. And there's a number of different districts that are quoted in there. And I think any of us who have met Ms. Shelley know that you cannot be around her without feeling her passion for the wellness of our children. And when you read that article, if you just took all of the names off and tried to figure out who the quotes are from, you would know which quotes were from Ms. Shelley. She just talks so passionately about why this is important to our kids, especially given the issues facing so many of the kids we serve around obesity and diabetes, to make sure that we're helping them make healthy choices and teaching them about why in our schools. And we talk a lot at CPS about preparing kids for life, and I think this is one of those ways. And her commitment to our kids, it just really shines through. And I think we see it again in these policies. So I just wanted to call her out and the work that she does.
Thank you.
I agree. I was most impressed that she's looking for whole wheat oyster crackers. Did you guys read that? Right. But the article was outstanding, and that is another example of how we can shine the light on CPS and the passionate work that all of our folks are doing. So I thought that was a great article as well.
Any other comments or questions? Thanks for the work on this from administration and from the board, and holding firm on what's best for kids and making whatever slight adjustments needed to be made instead of capitulating. Roll call.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Bolton?
Aye. Mr. Nelms, you have a resolution for board consideration, I believe.
Yes, I do, Madam President. I have a resolution approving students eligible for subsidy reimbursement in lieu of transportation, and I present as written.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Coons. Any discussion or talk? Questions?
I would like for somebody to explain this in common folks or layman's terms that will help me have some clarity on what we're presenting, because I'm reading the notes,
I believe Ms. Wagner is
if you
approaching
can
the
help me.
podium.
Yes, Mrs. Wagner's coming up to talk about it, and it really concerns if we're unable to transport a child due to distance across the district, we can do a subsidy. But
correct it, excuse me, because we're citywide schools of choice. There aren't always enough students on a bus to make it economical for us. So whenever we find that case, we pay each student an amount of money to help them pay for their transportation, and the amounts are set by the state.
Okay. Is this, did we do this last year?
We do it every year,
and
we update it several times a year as more kids, when they move or they join the district, we determine that they're
particular
not.
challenges or issues? No?
No.
So it runs pretty smoothly?
Yes.
Cases. Okay.
Next.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bates?
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby?
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Manera?
Aye.
Mr. Nelms?
Aye.
President Bolton?
Aye. Superintendent Roden, I understand you do have a couple of reports tonight.
yes, I do. I have two reports, and the first one is on our graduation requirements, and I'm going to ask our new Director of Accountability and Performance, Barbara Matei-Smith, to come up and talk about it. I'm also going to pass out what we have just received from the state in terms of what the requirements are. The good news is all of our courses are in line with what the state requires, but now there's some end-of-course exams and some other items that Barbara is going to go over with us tonight. And now this is for the class of 2018, so it's for the incoming freshmen, correct?
Good evening.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So the graduation requirements are changing for this year's incoming freshmen. And as we go through this process, the incoming freshmen, let's see, I need my, sorry. Beginning with this, they will be required to complete the same course requirements as all of the classes before them in the last few years, but they will have new end of course exams. There will be 2 math exams, Algebra 1 and Geometry, Physical Science, American History, American Government, and 2 English end of course exams, English 1 and 2. The state does allow students who are in advanced placement or in international baccalaureate programs to substitute those exams, as well as dual enrollment courses in any of those courses. In addition, the state board may add additional substitute exams to this list beginning with the 16-17 school year. We do not know what their plans are for that at this point, but there may be some additional opportunities to take the exams. Once they've completed courses and the end of course, these are the standards for meeting a graduation requirement. They have to earn a cumulative passing score on 7 end of course exams, or they must earn remediation free score on the SAT or the ACT. Or they may earn an approved industry credential, a state issued license,
or a state-issued license and earn a score demonstrating workforce readiness on a job skills assessment. For example, the ACT Work Keys is one of those assessments. The end of course exams to determine the scores, there will be points awarded based on the scores they received, a high of 5 for an advanced, a low of 1 for basic. So students are have the potential to earn 35 points. 18 points are required to earn a cumulative passing score. The state did set some standards in terms of minimum in various subject areas in math and English, so many points from that, so many points from the other test. But in total, 18 points are required in order to earn a diploma if you go through the end of course exams and the point structure. And at that point, any questions or that I can answer, I'd be glad to answer.
Yes, Mr. Nelms.
First of all, I thank God that I came through school at a time when I think I was well educated. Well, we didn't have to jump through so many hoops, and I understand the reason for preparing our students, but I'm not always sure that it's really going to prepare our students because I just have a different perspective. But I want to ask you, what is the reasoning from the State Department regarding these new requirements? And then in your research, do you anticipate any fallouts? We know that college is really moving toward creating a system of the elite. And I kind of see this as something that may just follow that, and hopefully it won't discourage our kids, especially in the urban core, in the urban districts, to not drop out of school or pursue other avenues.
Well, I think if we consider this from the state policy standpoint, some of the conversations that was had, the idea is by offering various pathways to earn diploma that hopefully will reach a broader sector of our students. For those students, that are not the math and the English students, but prefer an industry background, we might be able to reach those through the industry credentials. But set at a level so that if you went that route, it didn't mean that you were getting less of an education than the student in, say, a typical college prep type coursework. So there was the idea to offer opportunities, to make sure that if you were in an international baccalaureate program or in a school taking a lot of AP classes, you didn't have to double test in order to determine if you were able. So there were opportunities provided. But I think the other thing about it is that if you looked at the OGT over time, which tested students at a 10th grade level, and you looked at the number of students then went on to college and were in remediation courses, we had very high percentages there as a state. And so by saying to students, we have some basic courses that we think you need to understand the background in order to succeed later in life. And that includes for almost all of our industries today and any living wage job. These are the kind of skills you need. We're going to ensure you take those. Students have also, and I know when I was in the state and talking to high school students, one of their complaints was the OGT. We took that test totally independent of when we took the coursework. And so we might be coming back 2 years after we took Algebra 1, being tested on information in Algebra 1. And by golly, I needed to prep all over again. So this is a way to make sure that we're testing as they learn and not constantly kind of forgetting where we are today and going back and looking at things we learned 2 or 3 years ago. So I think that was some of the logic in going into the.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Questions, comments? I have a question if I could. So these 2 pluses on the sheet that the superintendent passed out, which is that we have the credits, which is kind of my age group, you get enough credits, you get out, or the right ones, thank you. Besides that, they have to do the end of the course exams.
Right.
And that can be a number of different choices there. Mm-hmm. And then they have to do one of the 3 of these items over here, meet one of those following, which is the 7 end of the course exams.
The earning 18 points on those end of course exams.
So really, that number 1 is associated with the middle block?
Yes.
Okay, that's not like something else besides that?
No.
Great. And then remediation-free, ACT or SAT, they don't,
if they earn the remediation-free scores on the ACT or the SAT, they do not need to worry about the 18 points on the 7 end-of-course exams.
Okay, so that's
so
sort
if you
of
have a student that, you know, we have 17 points, we can take the ACT score, I believe it's a 22 overall. It's split between each subject, but it comes out to about a 22 overall, and you'll be okay.
Which for us, under current circumstances, would be problematic. I mean, the ACT, SAT, that's problematic right now for a number of our students.
Mm-hmm.
But then help me out a little bit more, and I so appreciate this to have this in front and know your knowledge, and so glad you're here. Could you explain any more a little bit about the State Board of Education approved industry recognized piece? Because I think that might be playing out a little bit. I know that none of these things are absolutely firmed up yet.
Right.
But tell me a little bit more about that from a career ed or tech ed, whatever.
So there are a number of programs that the Board of Education, in coordination with the Ohio Board of Regents, are identifying as industry credentials, recognized industry credentials. And it's really careful to note that because there are a number of credentials that are provided from a local, you know, a local industry may offer a credential, but it isn't widespread, it isn't accepted widely through the state. And they're not going to put that on their list. So there may be career technical opportunities or programs we've set up in order to meet the needs of our community that might not meet an industry credential on this list. And then there are others that we have set up. We've, in talking to Dr. Lofton, we've got Cisco certification that we've got coursework at TAF for. We've got some struggles in getting all the right teachers in to get it, but that program would be a Cisco certified, would be. Some of the career tech centers, the larger joint vocational centers, like if you think of Great Oaks here, outside of our area, they may offer some programs like cosmetology, so that the students could go through that program and perhaps in coordination with one of the local colleges earn all of the information they need in order to get a license at the end of high school. Though even those, there's very few programs that we can license straight out of high school. Most of our licenses require articulation to a community college, at least, in order to get.
Okay. And that license, they would still need to have the essential credits.
Yes.
But they may not have to have some of this other stuff.
That's correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a question
Yes,
too?
Mrs. Hoffman.
So similar to when third grade guarantee, we found out about that, and Cheryl's team did pre-testing, figured out where we needed to put our resources, redirected things to make sure our kids were going to be able to succeed on this. Similarly, and this might be going off of what Vice President Nelms was trying to get at, is there going to be a way for us to be pressure testing these tests to make sure that we can redirect resources where they're needed so that our kids don't end up, it doesn't end up being a detriment to our kids and holding kids back from graduating because of these new testing requirements? So we'll be able to see where they're struggling and then make sure we're committing resources there.
And we definitely have had conversations about starting to put those systems in place to do that. We are at a disadvantage in that the tests are new. We're going to, this first year we'll get information back, and not every test will come online this first year. They'll be gradually come in as our students essentially matriculate through the program. So we're going to work on that, and we're going to work for ways to identify it, and we've already had some conversations on how to do that. But we are struggling a little bit with understanding what exactly the tests are going to tell us and what information we'll have and when from the new assessments that are being developed.
Now, as you move forward, I was thinking this, but I didn't express it. I would be interested in determining in your research how this might impact our students that engage in co-curricular, extracurricular activities, and whether or not it will promote more involvement or discourage or prevent more involvement. And so if you can come back and give us a report around your findings, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
I just have a question. How are we informing the public about these new standards?
I think we're just starting to think about how to do that. Okay. One of the realities is that what I have presented to you is what a subcommittee of the State Board of Education is proposing. The whole board has not adopted it yet. Okay. So we're a little hesitant to go out too far in front of the game because it can still change. I don't anticipate major changes at this point, but there may be minors.
Yeah, I just, I don't know, for some this would be very new and more rigorous than anything that has been seen when we talk about these end of course exams. Mm-hmm. But then for others and some of our other high schools, no problem, piece of cake. But we've got to talk to our families in advance so that for those that this is new, they can handle it. Yes. You know, I'm not that taken aback by it. You know, when we talk about a rigorous curriculum and being able to demonstrate and prove what our kids are learning, that's what this looks like to me. In the third column there, when it talks about meet one of the three following, we talk about preparing kids for life. So if we can aggressively think about how to partner with these industry recognized places or whatever these things are, you know, related to the workforce, you know, and building partnerships with those folks, you know, ahead of time so that our kids, because some kids will absolutely choose that route. Yes. And I don't think we probably do enough related to vocational training and tapping into that. There could possibly be potential with like a Cincinnati State as we talk about dual enrollment and those kinds of things. So, but I'm always going to bring up how are we going to talk to our families in advance.
And I think as part of the broader policy of thinking about how we help our students stay in school, the state is also working on a pilot that we're working with them on to kind of look for early warning signs of students that may struggle through high school that we'll see even as early as 4th and 5th grade and definitely in the middle schools so that we can kind of intervene early, similar to what we've done with 3rd grade reading guarantee. Yes. Identify early, intervene early, and the results are likely to be great.
Yeah, yeah. And anytime we have a model that we know has worked, I keep looking over at Cheryl, you know, that's a good example perhaps to tap into. So I appreciate how forward we're being with putting this information out now, you know, so that we're not caught behind the 8 ball scrambling, trying to catch up with a new standard or something like that.
Mrs. Bates? Thank you. Yeah, and I assume that one of the reasons that this is being done is to avoid the remediation at the college level. So my question is, and if you could find this out for us, all the universities that I know of give a pre-screening exam to find out what placement to use to have the college students placed in math courses, English courses, whatever. Are the end of course exams being aligned to each university's screening tests, or are they still going to be able to develop their own and set their own criteria, at least the state universities?
Right. For the public universities in Ohio, they all will be aligned to the new PARCC exams will be aligned to the requirements, and they are working to make sure that as that data comes in, it may be that remediation free for college is more than the 18 points or requires that you have a minimum score in math and English at a certain level on these new exams. They've not fully defined that yet that I've seen. The remediation-free standards for the ACT and the SAT actually has been set by the Board of Regents, so that now any student who enters a public university in Ohio with those scores cannot be put into remedial coursework. So they've already reached that point in the university system of Ohio of setting a single standard for all of our public institutions for remedial free.
And the test will not be repeated?
No. Not for the students that come in with the appropriate scores at the start. That's our understanding of how the Board of Regents is operating.
Yeah. Would it make concessions for students on IEPs also? Or is it the jury's still out? And I guess those are some of the responses to the questions that I'm posing. How would it impact those students that are specially categorized and
Right.
have special learning situations? And so you can put that on your list as you come back after doing some research.
The state board has set some guidelines for how to handle an IEP, but I'm not sure about what the universities in their remediation for are doing, so I will look into that.
Okay, thank you.
It would seem to me that our efforts in our 7th and 8th grade through our My Tomorrow help get us ready to do this in a very significant way. And I think that's very forward thinking. But I would also think that this is all kind of part of, to your point, the high school initiative, where we're beginning to expand what this may mean to our families. I mean, initially, this can look very, very scary. And it looks very scary if indeed, Mr. Nelms and I just came out of a meeting prior to the first couple of meetings about the equity of our high school curriculum and instruction among and across our high school. So that first column begins to be even more important now. This has been very helpful, and I think the superintendent will probably need multiple kind of follow-ups to help us understand this and know how you all are strategically approaching this, just as somebody mentioned, just like the 3rd grade reading, rededicating resources and to your point, getting this out as part of the message about the new high school.
Yeah, and I think what it does too, when we look at that first column, it brings some alignment between our high schools.
Yes.
So that the expectation at all of the high schools is the same, and then, being able to equitably disperse resources to all of our high schools so that, everyone is receiving the rigorous curriculum in these areas.
Thank you.
Would we have an assignment then be to understand that this isn't final yet, to report back when it is final?
If you'll mention that in the assignments segment, I think that makes complete sense as we, start to rededicate ourselves to our flagships, the high schools. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you for bringing that to us, Superintendent.
You're welcome. Now, I do have a second report, and it's exciting news about.
Okay, good then.
Yes, I saved the best for last. It's about our after-school grants. We were very concerned because a lot of them had phased out. Well, CPS partnered with a number of our partners, and in the end, the group of us got 12 new grants. In fact, we got 20% of the grants. There were 61 21st century grants awarded in the state of Ohio. And there's 3 different levels. There was a Path A. These are $500,000, $500,000 grant in grants. And with these, we are looking for doing family literacy, to your point, Mr. Manera. So hiring a literacy specialist for after school and a family literacy academy. Then we have actually CPS, our 3, we've involved that, and then we asked the ABC Foundation if they could submit 3, because every organization was limited to 3. So Mr. Leshner, Brian Leshner, I want to give a shout out to him. He also received 3. So we have 6 that got the $500,000 around the family literacy. Then, and those schools are Rothenburg, Westwood, Taft, Riverview East, Robertson, Pleasant Hill. And So I see Julie Doppler out there. I see our grant writer, Kara. I see CYC partners. I see Charlene Myers, principal of Riverview East. So congratulations to you. So that is wonderful. So we have a cheering section there. Now, there was Path B grants, and these are for $200,000 grants. And the Path B grants, Families Forward received it at Carson, the Boys and Girls Club at Roll Hill, and the YMCA for Reese Price, Cheviot, and Pleasant Ridge Montessori. So congratulations to all those schools. Now the Path C grants, that is $200,000 per year for 3 years, and it's to implement a high school after-school program at Taft High School. So that is our third grant. So we also receive renewals on 4 previously awarded grants, and those were at Hartwell, Mount Washington, Western Hills University, and Withrow University got renewals on their grants.
Excellent.
So in total, we got $4.5 million a year for after-school programming. So thank you to all of our partners.
Well, that's, keep doing those kind of reports, Superintendent. We really like that.
I'll try every other week.
Yeah, every other week, another 4.5 million. You got it. Great. Well, congratulations to everybody. Do I have a motion to approve the recommendations of the superintendent?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Bates. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Coons. Any questions for the superintendent? Discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Bates.
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby.
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Coons.
Aye.
Mr. Manera.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms.
Aye.
President Bolton.
Aye. Do I have a motion to approve the report of the treasurer?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Nelms. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Copeland Dansby. Any questions for the treasurer? I'm liking this so far.
I don't necessarily have any questions, but I do want to point out, if I've counted them correctly, 14 or so line items that are related to supporting students with disabilities. I think that's fantastic and worth sharing that information. Again, to point out equitably distributing resources to where they need to go. So I don't know what they total, but quite a bit.
It's millions. Wait for the 20.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Bates.
Aye.
Mrs. Copeland Dansby.
Aye.
Mrs. Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Coons.
Aye.
Mr. Manera.
Aye.
Mr. Nelms.
Aye.
President Bolton.
Great. Do we have any Do we have any inquiries or updates? Mrs. Bates.
Yes, I am seeing all over the news outlets that VLT has closed and that the children have nowhere to go, which is not true. And I wanted to ask if the board would support a directive to the superintendent to ensure that the media outlets are updated as to our plans to accommodate all of those students and a way to reach out to those families to ensure that they know that they have a place in our district.
Thank you. In fact, I think on Friday we realized that VLT was closing, and I believe that we have the postcards ready to go out to those families, inviting them back to Cincinnati Public Schools.
Well, I guess what I'm saying...
And we'll reach out and make sure, yes, to make sure that the news media knows we are more than there are.
Now,
Yes.
like, to get on the 11 o'clock news tonight, honestly, because this is what's out there right now, and that's what they're hearing. They're not hearing that there are spots in our schools
Is that
for the
doable?
students. It's just not true.
Yeah, I'm going to echo exactly what you said. And I did have a conversation with our Public Affairs Department last week, and I was told that there was a plan in place through a direct mail campaign. But I'm going to loudly echo the need to get out a message now, because it's a ton of kids. I don't know how many.
It's 600.
I thought it was 400, 600. But to make some sort of statement that advocates for our district and that these children are welcome back into our district.
And immediately, because that's what they're going to be broadcasting at 11 o'clock tonight.
Is that possible?
Of Of course it is. We could call them right now and
Let's
they'd come
do
with the
it.
microphone.
Get more mileage if we start with the morning news cycle, but I'll certainly try to do whatever I can for 11 o'clock.
Cool.
Whatever's best. I mean, whatever the best route is, I'd say take it down immediately, and let's not wait on a direct mail campaign.
It's going down.
And to counter what's
what's
I'm
out there.
looking at CPO, hundreds of kids without a school.
I got it as like a
And that's
text
what's going to
alert.
be on the 11 o'clock news tonight, and that's simply not true.
Open, just get on to Rothenberg and open the door and take a picture. Come on in. I think you
Talk
have
about
to.
our passage rate for our third grade guarantee,
Absolutely.
and this is an opportunity to get information out.
Yeah. And I would also just add to that too, I think it's great that there's a postcard going out. I also think that, and I understand why we had to wait until now, but I also know that there are other schools who have already scooped up a number of these children, because I've been communicating with some folks who are involved with parochials and other charters who have already
swooped up the kids.
swooped up those kids, and we want them. We want them in CPS, and so I think we want to make sure that, yes, a direct mail goes out, but that we have a plan for following up that, as I think the other board members are saying, really, really emphasizes why our district. What are we doing different? Because as you heard tonight, there are so many incredible things happening in CPS. So not just saying you're welcome back in our district, but we want you, and here's why you should choose us. And so not just one postcard, but a plan for a postcard followed by something.
Phone call.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think one thing to highlight might be, the neighborhood schools, because these families are leaving their very neighborhood to travel downtown to get to VLT. I mean, go to your neighborhood school, and this is what your neighborhood school has to offer.
And I do believe it'll set the tone for any future charter schools that will be closed. There's a rumor circulating about another charter school located in Bond Hill.
There's also a commercial related to it. It's not a rumor, it's real.
Okay, so it's to set the tone and a precedence for us to be proactive.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other inquiries or updates? Mr. Coons.
I have a update that is also an assignment, so if I could segue from I to J on the agenda.
Yeah,
as I
is there
go.
anybody else have any updates or inquiries? We can go right to assignment then.
Okay, so the update is, my fellow board members and superintendent probably know, OSBA has informed us that there's legislation seeking to repeal the Common Core, House Bill 597 in Ohio. This is very concerning to me. I think it would severely disrupt the progress that we've made in kind of revolutionizing how we educate our students. So that's the update, just for those in the public that didn't know that that's coming about. The assignment would be, I'm going to make it to myself and other fellow board members. I think we need to reach out to our state legislature now. Language is not finalized yet, but hearings are planned to begin tomorrow, August 12th, in the House Rules and Reference Committee, not the House Education Committee. It's something I'll definitely bring this up in our PPE committee, but we just need to make sure we're formulating a strong message to fight this attack, as I see it. So I'm wondering if our administration has any strategies to deal with it as well, if we're going to be testifying?
Yes, indeed we do, and we are planning on testifying. I have spoken with Julie Sellers, and we had several of our coaches last year who went up to testify and were there till 2 in the morning and did not get the opportunity. They are certainly more than willing to go back up next week when the hearings are and actually get to testify this time. So we do have a plan in place.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Assignment, can we get out to the board who we need to contact at state? That'd be great.
Yes.
In this.
Yeah, we'll ask for our assistants to help make sure we get it to the right folks.
Yeah, if we can get the right numbers and what have you. I know you've done that before. Appreciate it.
That'd be great.
Also would hope that the administration would be represented in the testimony as well as our teachers, if that's possible.
Certainly, we had administrators there in the spring, but sometimes it's more powerful coming from the teachers, so that's why we highlighted our teachers.
Yeah, my recollection from the presentation from President Sellers and conversation, I know that CFT was instrumental in their national convention about making sure that some of the criticism of Common Core did not go unanswered there, so that from the Chicago folks. So we know that they're deeply committed to the Common Core too. That's great. Any other assignments? Ms.
Yes,
Hoffman?
just from the graduation requirements, once they're finalized, if we can have a report or communicate around how we're going to communicate this out to families, and then also how we're going to make sure that the testing and interventions, similar to what we heard about the third grade guarantee, that we get those similar reports about how that's all going with these new requirements for our kids.
Yeah, and I'd also like to incorporate into that how these new requirements are aligning with My Tomorrow.
Makes sense. Any other assignments?
Yeah, this might fluctuate between inquiry, update, or assignment, but I wanted to say that I don't know if there's a system in place, and I can only speak for me. My memory is not that long, the older I get, but I know one thing, there's a lot of information that comes across our desks before us, and it's hard to retain. Is there a system or documented system in place to capture or hold on to pending, ongoing issues? And I think if there isn't, then we need to be mindful of maybe creating something that would promote currency and consistency. For example, that Madisonville issue, and then hearing from the public and things of that sort. And not to increase anybody's workload, but I think it would go a long way with just keeping us current and in the moment for checking off whatever issues may arise and things of that sort. So just a thought.
I think we can all think about that. I know we try to do it with a weekly update and the yellow sheet and a couple of other things, and probably need to kind of maybe have a look, see if we can, about assignments and the currency of particular assignments, when it was met, when it was given. I know that that's taken care of, I think, from public affairs. And
Actually, Phyllis in your office made the list.
Sharing that would be great. And I think the request that early on, and I know Pat and Phyllis have worked on it, is a combined calendar as well. But you really do have to keep remembering what was up and what wasn't up and when it came before us and what have you. And I think the committees, do a reasonably good job, but I do think that the committees could be doing even a little bit more about giving a little bit more history in some of their reports to the fellow board members. Because I know that's where I lose it, is where, was this before the committee before, or we can all do a better job at that. I think that's great. Other suggestions or issues? No other assignments. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Good meeting.